Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to welcome you to this special presentation. Today, we'll be exploring the step-by-step Hajj guide, brought to you by Continuous Learning Development. This is the cover slide, so I just want to give you a quick overview of what we'll cover. We'll walk through the essential steps of Hajj, providing clear guidance to help you understand this important journey. Let's get started. Welcome to slide 2. Here, we see the phrase recite talbiyah, which is a profound expression of devotion and readiness to serve Allah. It begins with, "Here I am at thy service," emphasizing a state of complete submission and willingness to serve. The repetition reinforces the sincerity and dedication involved in this act. When we say, "There is no associate with thee," we're affirming the oneness of Allah, a core principle in our faith. The phrase, "Verily all praise and grace is due to thee," and the sovereignty too, reminds us that all gratitude, blessings, and authority belong to Allah alone. Connecting this to our overall theme, it highlights the importance of humility, devotion, and recognizing Allah's supreme position in our spiritual journey. This recitation is not just words. It's a heartfelt declaration of our commitment and acknowledgement of His divine sovereignty. Today, I want to walk you through some of the key points related to the places and actions involved in the Ihram process. We start with the important locations marked for entering into Ihram, such as Makkah, Dat Irq, Karn al-Manzil, Jufa, Yalamlam, and Dhul Hulaifa. These are the designated miqat points where pilgrims should intend to enter into the state of Ihram before reaching Makkah. Next, we focus on the essential actions, making the intention, called niyyah, and putting on the Ihram clothing. This step is crucial because it signifies your sincere intention to perform the pilgrimage. Once your intention is set, you enter into the state of Ihram, which is a spiritual preparation for the sacred journey. After that, it's important to reach the miqat, the designated boundary, before entering Makkah. When you arrive at the miqat, you should face the Qibla, the direction of the Kaaba in Makkah, which helps to focus your heart and mind on the sacred purpose of your journey. Throughout this process, the emphasis is on the sincerity of your intention and the physical act of preparing yourself spiritually and practically for the pilgrimage. These steps are not just rituals. They are about entering a state of humility, devotion, and focus on the spiritual significance of Hajj or Umrah. Welcome to slide 4. As we approach the sacred journey, it's important to remember that this is dedicated to continuous learning and spiritual growth, as highlighted by the copyright 2025 by Continuous Learning Development. Now, when you arrive in Makkah, the first step is to do fresh wudu. This act of purification is essential, not just physically but spiritually, preparing us for the sacred rituals ahead. After completing wudu, the next step is to continue with the talbiyah. Saying the talbiyah with sincerity and focus is a key part of demonstrating our devotion. We should keep reciting it until we reach Makkah, symbolizing our unwavering intention and connection to Allah. These steps, purification and devotion, are vital in maintaining the spiritual focus throughout the pilgrimage. Remember, these practices help us establish a pure heart and mind, aligning perfectly with the overall journey of faith and renewal. Now, as we approach the next step in our journey, let's talk about performing tawaf, which is a very important act of worship. Remember, this slide reminds us that the process is guided by the year 2025, according to the standards of continuous learning development. Before we begin tawaf, it's crucial to stop reciting talbiyah. This signifies that we are moving from the state of Ihram into the act of tawaf. So, once you've completed your talbiyah, make sure to pause and prepare yourself mentally and spiritually for tawaf. This transition is key because it marks a shift in your focus from the Ihram intentions to the actual circumambulation around the Kaaba. Keep this in mind as an essential part of maintaining the proper etiquette and spiritual focus during your pilgrimage. Welcome to slide 6. Here, we focus on the starting point of Tawaf, which is the black stone. This is a significant moment in the pilgrimage. When you begin Tawaf, you start at the black stone, which holds a special spiritual importance. Next, as you approach the black stone, you have the option to kiss it, touch it, or simply point towards it. Each of these actions is a reflection of reverence and respect, and you can choose whichever feels most comfortable and meaningful for you. After positioning yourself at the black stone, it's customary to say, Allahu Akbar, which means God is the greatest. This phrase emphasizes the devotion and humility inherent in the act of tawaf. Remember, these actions are not just rituals, they symbolize our connection to God and our intention to seek His blessings. This step ties into the overall theme of approaching the sacred with sincerity and mindfulness. Let's take a moment to reflect on this beautiful supplication. Our Lord, grant us the good of this world and the hereafter, and protect us from the torment of the fire. This dua beautifully captures our deep hope for all-encompassing goodness, both in this life and the hereafter. It reminds us to ask Allah for success, well-being, and protection from harm. When we say this, we're acknowledging that true success is from Allah alone, and we're seeking His mercy in both realms. Now, moving on to the practical aspect of this slide, we're instructed to go around 7 times. This act of circling or going around 7 times is a traditional practice during certain Islamic rituals, symbolizing devotion, patience, and focus. After completing the rounds, we recite the dua from the Yamini corner to the black stone. This recitation is a moment of spiritual connection. It's about expressing our sincere hopes and seeking Allah's blessings through this specific prayer. This practice isn't just about the physical act. It's about engaging our hearts in sincere dua, trusting that Allah hears our supplications. It ties into our overall theme of devotion and mindfulness, focusing our intentions and seeking Allah's mercy and guidance in every act. Remember, these small acts of worship are ways to strengthen our faith and remind ourselves of our dependence on Allah's mercy. As we move on to slide 8, I want to emphasize an important point about during tawaf. You'll notice the mention of the Hatim, which is a sacred area adjacent to the Kaaba. It's very tempting to want to step inside or get closer, but it's crucial to remember that we should not step into the Hatim itself. Doing so will invalidate your tawaf, meaning your act of worship would no longer be valid. So, while it's a special part of the Masjid al-Haram, we must maintain the proper boundaries. This highlights the importance of respecting the sacred spaces and understanding the rules that ensure our worship remains valid and accepted. Keep in mind, the goal is to perform tawaf correctly, with reverence and awareness of these key points. All right, on this slide, we see the copyright 2025 by Continuous Learning Development. This reminds us of the ongoing commitment to growth and learning that underpins everything we're discussing today. Now, let's focus on the note about the tawaf resume. If you leave your tawaf from the same point, it's important to stay in wudu. This helps maintain your spiritual purity and focus throughout the process. Moving on to the instructions for men. When performing tawaf, you should walk quickly 3 times around the Kaaba. This fast-paced walking reflects a sense of urgency and devotion. After that, you walk normally 4 times, which allows for reflection and connection. These details might seem small, but they emphasize the importance of maintaining the correct posture and intention during tawaf. Remember, consistency and mindfulness are key. These points tie back to our overall theme of mindful worship and disciplined practice, ensuring that every step we take is purposeful and spiritually meaningful. Now, as we approach the conclusion of our journey, I'd like to highlight the significance of drinking Zam-Zam water. It's considered a blessed act, symbolizing devotion and gratitude, especially after completing the rituals. Next, I want to emphasize the importance of offering 2 sunnah prayers at Maqam Ibrahim. These are voluntary acts that hold great spiritual reward and connect us deeply to the traditions of Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him. And a small but meaningful note. When you're praying the first rak'ah, remember to recite Surah Al-Fil or Kaifarun, as it's traditionally read during that part of the prayer. Then, in the second rak'ah, it's recommended to recite Surah Al-Ikhlas. These recitations help us focus our mind and heart, reinforcing the core beliefs of our faith. By incorporating these acts, we deepen our spiritual connection and fulfill the sunnah in a meaningful way. This ties back to our overall theme of devotion and mindful worship. Surely Safa and Marwa are among the signs of Allah. When approaching the Sa'i, it's important to remember that these 2 hills are not just physical landmarks, but also hold deep spiritual significance. They remind us of the patience and perseverance of Hagar and serve as symbols of our own faith and trust in Allah's plan. As we move between Safa and Marwa, we're actually reflecting on those qualities and connecting ourselves more deeply with the history and teachings of Islam. This act isn't just a ritual, it's a way to reinforce our submission and devotion. So, as you approach the Sa'i, keep in mind that these signs are part of Allah's signs in the universe, guiding us and reminding us of His presence and mercy. Now, moving on to this next part of our journey, remember that this presentation is Kaparat 2025 by continuous learning development, emphasizing our ongoing commitment to growth and knowledge. Next, we arrive at Mount Safa. When you reach it, you should stand on or near the mountain, facing the Qibla. This position is very significant, as it aligns with the spiritual and physical orientation during the pilgrimage. Once you're in position, face the Qibla and say Allahu Akbar, which means God is the greatest. This declaration marks the start of a sacred act, connecting us to the devotion and humility required in this process. Follow this with the next supplication. It's a moment to focus your heart and mind on Allah. After that, we come to Al-Mawa and Al-Safa, the two hills that are integral to the ritual. These sites symbolize the story of Hagar and her search for water, reminding us of trust and perseverance. So, as you move between Al-Safa and Al-Mawa, think of the spiritual journey and the history behind these hills. This step is not just physical, it's deeply spiritual, reinforcing our connection to faith and tradition. None has the right to be worshipped but Allah alone. He has no partner, and His is the dominion. His is the praise, and He is able to do all things. This reminds us that Allah is the only true object of worship, with no one equal to Him. His sovereignty over everything is absolute, and all praise belongs to Him alone. When we reflect on His power, it's clear that He is capable of doing anything. Furthermore, Allah fulfilled His promise, helping His servant and granting victory. He is the one who defeated the Confederates, showing His power and support for those who believe in Him. These points highlight His unmatched authority and His mercy towards His followers. Connecting this to our overall theme, it underscores the importance of trusting and worshiping Allah alone, recognizing His unique qualities and His ability to support us through all challenges. Now, as we continue our spiritual journey, let's focus on the act of walking between Al-Marwa and Al-Safa. Here, I want you to imagine yourself walking calmly and purposefully, starting from Al-Safa and heading towards Al-Marwa. This movement symbolizes our devotion and sincere supplication. As you walk, remember to raise your hands and make dua. This is a moment of heartfelt connection, a chance to speak directly to Allah with humility and hope. The act of raising your hands signifies openness and surrender, inviting Allah's mercy and blessings into your life. This part of the pilgrimage is not just about the physical act, but about strengthening our faith and trust. It reminds us of the importance of supplication along our spiritual path, reaffirming our reliance on Allah's guidance. So, as you walk towards Marwa with your hands raised, keep your focus on your intentions and let your heart be filled with sincerity and gratitude. This is a beautiful opportunity to deepen your connection with Allah, embracing the spiritual significance of this ritual. Welcome to slide 15. Here, we see the important instructions for the tawaf around Al-Marwa. It's essential to remember that this practice is deeply connected to our spiritual journey and devotion. When you reach Mount Marwa or Al-Marwa, you should stand either directly on it or close by. The key is to face the Qibla, which is the direction of the Kaaba. Once you're aligned, you should say Allahu Akbar. That's the first step in your supplication. After saying Allahu Akbar, you proceed with the next supplication, which varies but always reflects humility and devotion. This act symbolizes your intention and reverence. The same applies to Al-Safa. It's a reminder of the historical significance and the spiritual connection we maintain during this ritual. Remember, these steps are not just physical actions, but moments of deep reflection and connection with Allah. Keep in mind, the overall theme of this presentation is about understanding the spiritual essence behind each step. making each movement meaningful in your worship. None has the right to be worshipped but Allah alone. He has no partner, and His is the dominion. All praise belongs to Him, and He is capable of doing all things. This reminds us that Allah is the only worthy of worship, emphasizing His uniqueness and sovereignty. Remember, only Allah has the right to be worshipped, and He has fulfilled His promises. He supported His servants in times of need and has defeated those who conspired against Him, like the Confederates. These points highlight Allah's power, His mercy, and His faithfulness. They remind us to place our trust solely in Him and acknowledge His supreme authority over everything. This ties back to our overall theme of recognizing Allah's oneness and His essential role in our faith and life. Now, we are at slide 17 of 40, with the copyright 2025 by Continuous Learning Development. At this stage, you will continue to perform Sa'i, which involves walking back and forth between Mount Safa and Mount Marwa. You will do this 7 times, so remember, starting at Mount Safa, walk to Mount Marwa, then back to Mount Safa, and so on until you've completed 7 circuits. While you're doing this, keep making dua with raised hands. This act of supplication is a very important part of the ritual, as it symbolizes your devotion and connection to Allah. Once you've completed the 7 circuits, your Sa'i will end at Mount Marwa. And a quick note, it's recommended to perform wudu before starting this part of the ritual to ensure purity. All of these steps are integral to the overall experience and spiritual significance of Hajj or Umrah, so stay mindful and sincere in your actions. Now let's talk about the key points on this slide. When performing Sa'i, it's important to make 7 rounds between Safa and Marwa. Each round starts at Safa, where we begin by raising our hands in dua, asking Allah for guidance, blessings, or whatever is on our heart during this sacred act. The number 7 is significant here because it reflects the traditional practice established in the Prophet's time. As you move from Safa to Marwa and back again, remember that each round is a chance to connect spiritually and seek Allah's mercy. You might notice the numbers listed, 1 through 7. These are the rounds, emphasizing that this is a complete cycle. And as you perform Sa'i, always keep in mind the importance of humility and devotion, especially during the dua at Safa. This act of walking back and forth between these 2 hills isn't just a physical act. It's a spiritual journey that symbolizes the perseverance of Prophet Ibrahim and Hajar. So, as you go through each round, think about the significance of each step, and remember that these small acts are part of a larger, meaningful connection to Allah and the overall pilgrimage experience. Now let's talk about how to properly exit Ihram, which is an important step in the pilgrimage process. When you're ready to leave the state of Ihram, the key action is to cut your hair. For men, this typically means shaving their head completely, symbolizing the end of the sacred state. For women, the procedure involves cutting a small portion of their hair, which is a simpler yet equally significant act. This act of cutting hair signifies that you've completed the spiritual obligations associated with Ihram and can now return to your normal state. Remember, this step not only marks the conclusion of the pilgrimage rites, but also helps you transition smoothly back into everyday life. It's a beautiful moment of renewal and completion in the pilgrimage journey. Thank you for being with us up to this point. I want to take a moment to celebrate your achievement. Congratulations on completing your Umrah. This is a significant milestone, a spiritual journey that many aspire to undertake. It's not just about the physical act, but also about the personal growth, reflection, and renewed faith that come with it. Remember, this experience can serve as a powerful reminder of your commitment to continuous learning and self-improvement. So, take pride in this accomplishment and carry the lessons you've learned forward as you continue on your development path. Today, I want to highlight some key points about arriving at Arafat during Hajj. On the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, it's essential to reach Arafat and combine the Dahak and Usk prayers. Remember, there are no sunnahs to be performed in between these prayers at this specific time. Once you arrive at Arafat, you should stand there between the time of Usk and Maghrib, making dua and supplicating to Allah. This period is very significant because standing at Arafat during this time is a core part of Hajj. It's crucial to understand that failing to stand at Arafat during this time invalidates the Hajj itself, so this step cannot be overlooked. Finally, on the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, all pilgrims should reach Arafat, and this symbolizes the culmination of the day's rites. These points emphasize the importance of timing, intention, and proper observance in the pilgrimage. Now, as we approach the key part of our journey, it's important to remember to stand within the boundaries of Arafat. This is a fundamental requirement for the validity of the pilgrimage. Standing on rocks is not necessary, but if it helps you feel more comfortable or focused, it's optional. The main point is to be present within the designated area. Next, face the Qibla, which is the direction of the Kaaba in Mecca. This is a crucial aspect of our act of worship, symbolizing unity and devotion. Then, raise your hands to chest level and make dua. This is your moment to sincerely communicate with Allah, to ask for forgiveness, guidance, or whatever is in your heart. Remember, this act of dua is central to the spiritual experience of Arafat. Finally, after completing your dua, you will leave Arafat for Muzdalifah at sunset. This transition marks an important part of the pilgrimage, moving from the standing in Arafat to collecting pebbles in Muzdalifah for the upcoming rites. All these steps are designed to help us focus on our worship and connect deeply with Allah during this sacred day. Now, as we reach Muzdalifah, it's important to combine Maghrib and Isha prayers into one, which is a common practice at this stage of Hajj. Remember, there is no sunnah or dhikr to perform here during this time, so focus on your prayers and preparation. If you haven't collected pebbles yet, you should gather them from here. Make sure they are about the size of a date stone or a chickpea, and not flat, to be suitable for the Ramai ritual. Stay here until dawn approaches, and at the time of Fajr, perform your prayer promptly. Once you finish praying Fajr, it's important to leave quickly for Mina, especially early in the morning, to continue with the next steps of the pilgrimage. This part underscores the importance of timing, focus, and following the prescribed rituals properly as part of the overall Hajj journey. Today, I want to highlight some important steps to keep in mind during this stage of our pilgrimage. First, it's recommended to leave Mina for Jamarat before noon. This timing helps us stay on track and ensures we're performing the rites at the appropriate moments. Next, it's essential to recite the Talbiyah continuously until you begin the stoning ritual, or Rami. This act of remembrance keeps us spiritually focused and connected throughout the process. When it's time to throw the pebbles, hold them with your fingers and thumb. This gives you control and precision. Every time you throw a pebble at the Jamara, say Allah Akbar. Remember, you do this 7 times, symbolizing the completion of that act. And finally, make sure you're throwing the pebbles only at the largest pillar, known as Jamara al-Aqaba. This particular pillar is significant because it represents the devil, and stoning it symbolizes rejecting evil and temptation. All of these steps are interconnected and help us fulfill one of the most important rituals in Hajj, emphasizing devotion, focus, and following the prophetic example. Now, as we come to this slide, I want to emphasize the significance of sacrifice in our growth journey. The phrase, "now slaughter your animal as sacrifice," might sound intense, but it's a powerful metaphor. It symbolizes letting go of old habits, fears, or doubts that no longer serve us. By doing so, we create space for new opportunities and transformation. This act of sacrifice isn't about loss, it's about making a conscious choice to evolve. Remember, in the context of our overall theme, growth often requires us to release what's holding us back. So, this step is crucial in embracing change and moving forward with purpose. Now, let's talk about exiting Ihram, which is an important part of the pilgrimage. When you're ready to leave the state of Ihram, you'll need to perform the act of cutting hair. For men, this means shaving their heads, which is a common practice and symbolizes the end of the Ihram state. For women, instead of shaving, they simply cut a small portion of their hair. This act serves as a clear sign that the sacred state of Ihram has been concluded. Remember, this step is essential for completing the pilgrimage rituals properly, and signifies a transition to the next phase of your journey. Today, we'll discuss performing Tawaf al-Ifadah on the day of sacrifice, which is a very important act in your pilgrimage. Remember, it's essential to stay in wudu throughout this process to maintain purity. For men, there are specific actions to pay attention to. When walking around the Kaaba, you should walk quickly 3 times, especially between the green pillars, and then walk normally 4 times. These movements symbolize different aspects of humility and devotion. If, for any reason, you leave your tawaf before completing it, don't worry. You should simply resume from where you left off. The key point here is to maintain consistency and focus on the spiritual significance of each step. This act of Tawaf al-Ifadah is a vital pillar of Hajj, connecting you deeply with your faith and the rituals of pilgrimage. Keep these points in mind as part of your overall journey, ensuring everything is performed with sincerity and mindfulness. Finally, as we conclude this part of our spiritual journey, I want to highlight the significance of drinking Zam-Zam water. It's a practice deeply rooted in tradition and symbolizes purity and devotion. Next, I recommend offering 2 sunnah rakats at Maqam Ibrahim, which is a beautiful act of reverence and connection to the Prophet Ibrahim's legacy. Remember, in the first rakah, it's recommended to recite Surah Kaifarun, and in the second rakah, to recite Surah Ikhlas. These small but meaningful acts help strengthen our faith and bring us closer to Allah. Incorporating these practices into our routine enriches our spiritual experience and aligns us with the teachings we've been exploring throughout this presentation. Surely, Safa and Marwa are among the signs of Allah. When approaching the Sa'i, it's important to remember their significance as part of our faith. These 2 hills are not just physical locations. They symbolize the devotion and obedience to Allah demonstrated by Hagar during her search for water. Recognizing their importance helps us connect more deeply with the spiritual journey we undertake during Hajj and Umrah. As you perform the Sa'i, keep in mind that it's an act of worship that reflects patience, trust, and reliance on Allah's mercy. This part of the pilgrimage reminds us of the enduring faith that binds us to our Creator and to the history of those who came before us. So, as you read or approach the Sa'i, do so with reverence, awareness, and a spirit of devotion. Now, moving on to our next important step, which is marked by the copyright 2025 by continuous learning development. This reminds us of the ongoing journey of spiritual growth and learning. Next, we head to Mount Safa, a significant point in the pilgrimage. When you arrive there, you should stand on or near the mountain, facing the Qibla, which is the direction of prayer for Muslims. Once in position, it's customary to say Allahu Akbar, meaning God is the greatest, followed by a heartfelt supplication. This act signifies your devotion and readiness to engage in the spiritual rituals that follow. From there, we move to Al-Marwa, then to Al-Safa, which are the 2 key hills involved in the Sa'i ritual. Remember, the Sa'i symbolizes the search for water and sustenance, linking us to Hajar's perseverance. Throughout this process, it's crucial to maintain focus on the spiritual intent and the connection to our faith. These points, Mount Safa, Al-Marwa, and the act of facing Qibla, are integral to understanding the pilgrimage's deeper meaning, emphasizing trust, submission, and perseverance in our spiritual journey. None has the right to be worshipped but Allah alone. This is a fundamental point in our faith, emphasizing that only Allah deserves our worship and devotion. He has no partner, meaning there is nothing and no one equal to him. His is the dominion, everything in the universe belongs to him, and his is the praise, because all gratitude and thanks are due to him alone. And he is able to do all things, which reassures us of his power and ability to manage everything in creation. We also remember that Allah fulfilled his promise to his prophets and believers, helping his slaves whenever they needed support. And importantly, he is the one who defeated the Confederates, showcasing his strength and support for those who trust in him. This slide reminds us of Allah's unique sovereignty, his power, and his mercy, core concepts that tie into the overall message of reliance and faith in Allah alone. Now, as we continue, we see the copyright 2025 by continuous learning development. This reminds us of the importance of ongoing education and growth. Moving on, we have Al-Marwa and Al-Safa, which are two significant points in the spiritual journey. Next, I want you to imagine yourself walking towards Marwa. As you do, remember that this act is not just physical, it's deeply symbolic of devotion and patience. While walking, raise your hands and make supplications along the way. This is a moment to connect personally, to ask for guidance, forgiveness, or anything you seek from Allah. This part of the practice emphasizes mindfulness and sincerity, reinforcing our connection and devotion. It's a beautiful way to integrate physical movement with heartfelt prayer, aligning with the overall theme of spiritual renewal and continuous learning. Now, on this slide, we're focusing on the important steps involved in performing certain Islamic rituals at specific sacred sites. First, we see the mention of Mount Moa, or Al-Moa. When you stand on or near this mountain, it's essential to face the Qibla, which is the direction of the Kaaba in Mecca. Once you're facing the Qibla, the recommended action is to say Allahu Akbar, which means God is the greatest. Following that, you should recite a specific supplication, which connects you spiritually to the act of worship and the significance of the site. Moving on, the slide also mentions Al-Safa, another sacred location. These locations, Al-Moa and Al-Safa, are integral parts of the pilgrimage rituals, especially during Sa'i, which involves walking between them. Remember, standing on or near these sites and facing the Qibla while engaging in these supplications helps deepen your spiritual connection and fulfills the religious requirements of the pilgrimage. This process emphasizes the importance of intention, focus, and reverence in Islamic worship, tying back to our overall theme of devotion and mindfulness in performing sacred rites. None has the right to be worshipped but Allah alone. This is a fundamental concept in our faith, emphasizing that only Allah deserves our worship and devotion. He has no partner, which means there is nothing and no one equal or comparable to him. His is the dominion, the entire universe and everything within it belong to him. And his is the praise. He is worthy of all our gratitude and recognition. Allah is able to do all things. There are no limits to his power. This reminds us of his omnipotence and his ability to control everything in existence. The slide also highlights that Allah fulfilled his promise, meaning he always keeps his word, and nothing can alter his plans. He aided his slave, showing his support and mercy to those who believe and trust in him. And he alone defeated the Confederates, referring to a historical event where Allah's help was decisive against overwhelming opposition. All these points reinforce the core message of reliance on Allah alone, recognizing his unique status, his power, and his mercy. This ties into the overall theme of unwavering faith and trust in Allah's sovereignty and justice. Now, let's talk about the practical aspect of performing Sa'i during Hajj. You will make 7 rounds between Safa and Marwa, which are the 2 hills inside the Masjid al-Haram. It's important to remember that each round starts at Safa and ends at Marwa, and then you repeat this process 6 more times to complete the 7 rounds. While performing Sa'i, it's highly recommended to raise your hands and make dua. This is a beautiful moment to supplicate to Allah, seeking his blessings and mercy. Many pilgrims take this opportunity to connect spiritually and ask for forgiveness, guidance, or whatever is on their hearts. The numbers on the slide, 7, 5, 3, 6, 4, 2, 1, are a reminder that we start at Safa, go to Marwa, and then return, completing the full cycle. The entire process symbolizes the perseverance and dedication of Prophet Ibrahim and Hagar, and it's a central part of the pilgrimage that emphasizes patience and reliance on Allah. Remember, the key is to perform these rounds with sincerity and focus, making dua along the way. This act of worship connects us deeply to the history of Islam and reinforces our devotion. So, as you move between Safa and Marwa, keep your heart engaged, raise your hands in dua, and make your pilgrimage a meaningful spiritual journey. Now, let's talk about leaving Mina on the 11th of Dhul Hijjah after Zuhr prayer. This is an important step in the Hajj journey. When you leave Mina, you'll need to hold the pebble between your finger and thumb, ready for the Jamarat ritual. As you start, say Allahu Akbar each time you throw a pebble at the smallest pillar, which symbolizes the devil. Remember, you need to throw a total of 7 pebbles. It's essential to hit the small pillar accurately, as this act symbolizes rejecting evil and following Allah's commands. After finishing the first set of stones, stand facing the Qibla and make a long dua, raising your hands in supplication. This moment is a reflection of your devotion and seeking Allah's blessings. Next, move on to the middle Jamara. Again, throw the pebbles, then stand facing the Qibla, raise your hands, and make a long dua. This continuous act of prayer and reflection helps deepen your spiritual connection. Finally, you'll stone the largest Jamara, called the Janara. Here, you do not need to make a dua, you can depart quickly after hitting the pillar. This sequence of throwing pebbles and making dua is not just a ritual, it's a spiritual act of commitment and devotion. It's important to follow these steps carefully, as they connect the physical acts of Hajj with the inner spiritual journey you are undertaking. Now, let's talk about the next step on the 12th of Dhul Hijjah, which is leaving Mina for Jamarat after the Zuhr prayer. When you approach the Jamarat, you'll hold the pebble between your finger and thumb. It's important to remember to say Allah Akbar each time you throw a pebble, and you'll do this a total of 7 times. Make sure to aim at the smallest pillar, which represents the Jamarat. After you've completed your 7 throws, stand facing the Jamarat and make a long dua, facing the Qibla with your hands raised. This is a moment of reflection and supplication, so take your time to pray sincerely. Next, you'll move on to the middle Jamarat. Repeat the process. Throw the pebbles, then stand again, facing the Qibla, raising your hands and making a long dua. Finally, you'll proceed to the biggest Jamarat. Throw the pebbles here as well, but unlike the previous times, do not make dua after this throw. Instead, depart quickly, completing this part of your ritual. This sequence is key in completing the symbolic stoning of the devil, which is a central part of Hajj rituals. Remember, the focus is on performing each step with sincerity and devotion. Now let's talk about the optional stoning during Hajj, which takes place on the 13th of Dhul Hijjah after the Zuhr prayer. If you choose to do this, you should leave Mina after Zuhr and head to Jamarat. When you arrive, hold the pebble with your finger and thumb, ready for the ritual. Remember, each time you throw a pebble at the smallest pillar, say, Allahu Akbar. This is very important, as it signifies the act of worship and devotion. You should aim to hit the smallest pillar accurately, focusing on the sincerity of your action. After hitting the small pillar, stand facing the Qibla and make a long dua, raising your hands. This is a moment of reflection and supplication, so take your time to pray and connect spiritually. Next, move on to the middle Jamara. Again, throw a pebble, stand facing the Qibla, and make a long dua with raised hands. This step reinforces your devotion and patience during the Hajj rites. Finally, you will stone the largest Jamara. At this point, you do not need to make a dua. Simply throw the pebble and then quickly depart. This quick departure symbolizes the conclusion of the stoning ritual for this day. Throughout this process, remember the key point is to maintain focus, sincerity, and humility. The stoning is a vital part of the Hajj rituals, symbolizing the rejection of evil, and it's essential to perform it with devotion and proper manners. As we approach the end of our pilgrimage, it's important to remember to perform Tawaf al-Wada before leaving. This is the farewell circumambulation, and it holds great significance. Make sure to do this right before you depart, and try not to leave too long after completing it. If there's a long gap between finishing Tawaf al-Wada and leaving, it's recommended to repeat the Tawaf to ensure everything is in order. At the station of Ibrahim, you should offer the 2 Sunnah prayers, which are highly encouraged and a beautiful way to conclude your worship. If you're in a state of menstruation and have already performed the Tawaf on the day of sacrifice, you are permitted to leave. However, if you haven't done the Tawaf yet, it's better to try to delay your departure and stay behind to complete it. For men, when performing Tawaf, walk quickly for the first 3 rounds, which is a sunnah, and then walk at a normal pace for the remaining 4 rounds. If you leave your tawaf midway for any reason, you should resume from that point when you return, and remember to stay in a state of wudu to maintain the purity required for these acts. These steps are essential to ensure your pilgrimage is complete and accepted. Keep this in mind, and may Allah accept your efforts. Congratulations! You've completed your Hajj, a truly monumental achievement. This journey is not just about the rituals, but about spiritual renewal, reflection, and connection with Allah. Remember, the lessons learned and the spiritual growth you've experienced are lifelong treasures. To see more about this incredible journey, visit cldinstitute.com. Well done, and may your faith continue to strengthen and guide you every day.